Hello everyone, this is Alan, and it's a beautiful Saturday evening in Adelaide, South Australia. And here I am with another story regarding the delivery of the Israelites from the land of Egypt. Let's begin. Now, the Israelites have left the land of Egypt and they are going into the wilderness to worship the Lord. And it's not an easy task because now they are leaving where they had actually served their whole lives, and now they are going into the wilderness to worship the Lord who has promised them the land flowing with milk and honey. And it's a very interesting promise to make because there's nothing more luring to a hungry populace than a land flowing with milk and honey, because that's what Israelites are in the land of Egypt. They are a hungry populace looking for food in some sense, and food is the freedom, right? Well, this is the idea that I got from Dr. Jordan Peterson's discussions with 7 other scholars. It's his Exodus series, and it's very interesting because you need to have a hell and a heaven drawn out for you in order to keep on moving towards your goal. Well, the heaven for the Israelites was the land of milk and honey, and hell would be the continual serving their Egyptian overlords for the coming generations and forevermore. So now that the Israelites are in the wilderness, actually Lord gave them a set of rules to follow. So it is the passing on of the rules from the divine to the ordinary people, to the human beings. Well, one of the rules was the consumption of only unleavened bread 7 days a week. And the reasoning for this is actually explained in the Bible, is that when the upcoming generation of the Israelites who've been redeemed, who've been freed from the land of Egypt, they'd ask, why is it that we consume the unleavened bread? So that the story associated with the action would be, it is because the Lord delivered us, the Israelites, from the tyrant. So it is in that remembrance. I'd strongly suggest that, and I strongly believe that all the rituals and the traditions that we are actually following to this day are hundreds and thousands of years old, right? And I think it is the strongest form of discipline that's been adhered to no matter what the situation was. Even though there were plagues, wars, pestilences, whatever there was, the traditions actually survived because of the strongest form of discipline. Well, that's what the traditions and the rituals are in the most fundamental sense. They are the strongest form of disciplines that have been able to survive to this day. That's what that is. Well, now that the Israelites are in the wilderness, the Lord actually don't want them to go through the land of Philistines because apparently it is engulfed in war. Now, the Israelites have actually experienced a few major miracles, and is something, because it is not every day that you see frogs covering a piece of land in the entire world. It is not every day that you see the locusts consuming the grains. It is not every day that you see the firstborns being killed off of a particular civilization and the rest being spared. So all the miracles and the plagues are actually, in its entirety, are miracles in the most fundamental sense, because even the plagues, right? The nature of plagues is actually a miracle. Miracle is something that we don't see often, but really grips you. It leaves you in awe. That's what a miracle is. So the Lord thought that if the Israelites saw the war in Philistine, probably the Israelites would give up and they would go back to the land of Egypt and serve as slaves. It is actually very relatable to the human life, because it's not that, because probably a minor inconvenience is what it takes to push you back into the hell that you climbed out of. So this is where the the rules that have come into play are actually handy. So if you set down a set of rules for yourself, and those rules actually make you remember why is it that you are doing what you're doing. So for example, the one of the rules that I just explained, it would be the act of consumption of unleavened bread, to remember that the Lord who had performed all those miracles is the one who's delivering you. So you got to have that faith. You got to have that faith no matter what the situation is. Because the faith is what probably keeps your boat floating even if there's a storm. Well, now back in the land of Egypt, the Egyptians started to complain again why they had let the Israelites go, because they were being treated as the privileged overlords and they had let their slaves go. Because it is actually pretty funny to see how they forgot all the plague that they had gone through, how their land was covered with frogs, how the locusts ate their grains, how their firstborns were killed. They forgot all about that and they complained to Pharaoh. Well, the Pharaoh actually assembles an army and he goes after Israelites. Now, it wasn't really going very well for the Israelites too. They actually were stuck in a corner. So all they could see in front of them was a large mass of sea. And when they looked back, they saw that the Pharaoh was pursuing them. And at that point, they complained to Moses that it was better to rather slave away in the land of Egypt rather than to die in the wilderness. Well, it's completely understandable from the perspective of the Israelites, because probably it was better for them to serve in the land of Egypt, and they had a better, probably according to them, they had a better chance of surviving under the order of the tyrant. But now, because of their act of faith, the entire populace of the Israelites have to die. In this circumstance too, I'd say faith is your best bet. The reason being, the Israelites didn't know that the Lord had actually started helping them. So the Lord had actually started messing with the chariots of the Egyptians. So I think he started taking the wheels off of the Egyptians' chariots. So they had very much difficulties. They had to face difficulties while pursuing the Israelites. And some of the Egyptians had actually started to say it's better to leave the Israelites alone. It's because the Lord is with them. Well, if you're a tyrant, the thing is that your own people start turning against you. That is why this tyranny doesn't last for long. It always crashes, because it is not the case that you could always subdue the people. Your own people at your weakest moment probably will leave you. At the minor inconvenience, they see that you're falling off and they will leave you. So that is why tyranny doesn't really work. Well, now the Lord actually goes on and he grants Moses the power of parting of the sea that's ahead of them. So Moses is able to part the sea into two halves, and there is dry land in between, and the Israelites could walk through it. Well, the Pharaoh and the Pharaoh's armies had actually were actually pursuing them through that dry land between the sea, between the walls of the sea. So the same path that the Israelites were traveling on. And after the Israelites had passed, the walls of the sea came back crashing down onto the armies of the Pharaoh, and everyone died. So guys, this is one of the many adventures that the Israelites have to face on their journey into the wilderness. Well, let's continue the story next week. Have a good weekend.